Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 45th Annual Toronto International Film Festival and our Women on the Rise 2020 TIFF Rising Stars, a panel presented by OLG, sponsored by L'Oreal Paris and Berks, and supported by Telefilm Canada and Share Her Journey. My name is Ravi Srinivasan, and I'm an international programmer here at the festival. Each year, the TIFF Rising Stars program showcases new Canadian and international acting talent during the Toronto International Film Festival, highlighting the next generation poised for global success. For its 10th year, showing as part of our official selection. Here today to talk to us about the roles they have played thus far, the actors and creators they would most like to work with, and much more. It's my distinct pleasure and privilege and honor to be in the same virtual room as these fantastic artists. Please welcome Sheila Atim, Rainbow Dickerson, Tanya Maniktala, and Madeleine Sims-Fewer. Hi, everyone. Welcome. How are you all doing today?
Hi, great. Thanks for having us.
Morning. We'll start off. I'll start off with the first question here, and please, for those watching at home, if you have questions, please text chat in the chat box there your questions, and we'll try to get to them towards the end of the show. So if we could go around the group here, we'll start with Sheila. Can you talk to us a little bit about the film that you're in this year that's playing at the festival, and what made you say yes to this role in this project?
So the film I'm in is called Bruised, and it's Halle Berry's directorial debut. The film is about a disgraced MMA fighter, female MMA fighter, who hasn't fought for years, but for reasons that are explained in the film, has to get back in the ring. And my character is called Budokan, and I am essentially her trainer. So yeah, that's what the film's about. And the thing that drew me to the film was that it had two female leads in it, and that their relationship had nothing to do with men. But also the world of MMA, which I think is something that has been depicted on screen before, but not in the way that this film was attempting to do. And I think there is obviously the fighting aspect of the MMA, but there's also the story of the characters and the arcs that they have alongside the sport itself, that I thought was very interesting. And I felt like the character of Budokan particularly was quite mysterious, so there was lots of scope for me to flesh her out with, backstory that is said or unsaid in the film. So that's what I wanted to do it for.
Great. And Madeleine, you're in a very unique situation, as you're also the writer and director of the film that you're starring in. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about Violation, but also perhaps the decision to play the lead character in your film.
Yeah, absolutely. So my film Violation is a psychological horror. It's about a woman, Miriam, who is on the precipice of divorce, and she's not really accepted that her relationship's over yet. And she goes to stay with her sister and her brother-in-law in their cottage. And while she's there over the summer, she gets really horribly betrayed by both of them. And she decides that the only recourse for her is revenge. And it's a really tough film. I was interested in exploring ideas of trauma and how we deal with trauma, and also this idea that the people that hurt you aren't always strangers in a dark alleyway. Sometimes they're the people that are closest to you. And the decision, I think, for me to play the role of Miriam was really that it was such a demanding role, and it's mine and my creative partner, Dusty Mancinelli. It's our first feature. And we knew that we wanted to everything hinged on the performances for this feature. And we knew that if I played the role, we could push me a lot further than we could push anyone else. I mean, I just wouldn't stop until it was right. And I really felt like I could kind of delve into it in a really kind of deep and agonizing way. So that was sort of why I made that decision.
And Tanya, you're here part of our prime time selection. Can you tell us a little bit about the project you're involved with here?
Sure. So, A Suitable Boy is a TV series, a BBC TV series actually. So it's based on Vikram Seth's novel by the same name, A Suitable Boy. And the story revolves around Lata Mehra, a young teenager, university student, and how her mother is on this, she's taken up this mission of almost to find the suitable boy for her daughter. And you see, it's more than just about finding a suitable boy for her daughter. The story revolves around four families in the larger context. And there's obviously it's set in the 1950s, so there's a lot of heavy political context to all of it. It's a newly, like, post-partition India, post-independence India, so it's all very new. It's a coming of age almost for the country, for the nation, and also these characters that you see. So it's very compelling to me personally because it's a story that speaks to me. I have seen my ancestors go through the partition, and I've grown up with stories of the partition and how it affected their lives. So that is what drew me to this project, to be able to showcase my truth, to be able to reflect on what I have lived through my generations. So yeah.
Thank you. And Rainbow, you're here at the festival with a film by Tracy Deer called Beans. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, I sure can. I apologize too if my teeth are chattering. I'm freezing all of a sudden, so sorry. Yes, so Beans. You know, it is a lovely coming of age story of a little girl from Ganawage, set against the backdrop of a historical event called the Oka Crisis, or what came to be known as the Oka Crisis in 1990. You know, it's Tracy Deer's directorial debut for a feature film. It's also Gyawan Dio, who plays the lead in the film. It's her feature film debut and mine as well. So it's a lot of firsts in this film. And really, we call it a coming of age story, but I feel like it is also a story of the potential for humanity to learn from its mistakes, to repeat history or not. It's about community, it's about identity, how we look at ourselves and how we look at one another. So I really think it's a very rich story that's timely, even more than what we knew it would be based on our current social and political climate. Yeah, but it's a story of identity, coming of age.
I think, you know, this is a special edition that we're sort of focusing on, you know, all female identifying artists here. But also what's very unique is all of the projects that you're involved with here are also all directed by female artists as well. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the difference of playing characters, you know, and being directed by women, and sort of the, you know, the greatness of that, and the difference, and the, you know, the health of that, and, you know, especially for aspiring young actors, female identifying actors who are watching this and coming up, and the difference in those kind of roles that are created. We can start maybe with Tanya. We'll start with you.
Sure. So having, A Suitable Boy is directed by Meera Nair, and she is a great name in the industry for Bollywood and for Hollywood. Like, it is an honor to work with her. I mean, I still can't believe that I was directed by her. But having been a part of her vision was something that it felt like it was almost becoming a part of that world, because it wasn't just a story being told, it was a story being lived, and that I felt like was a major difference for me, because I don't think I would ever want to be a part of something that I don't really truly feel for. And she made me, it was her passion that rubbed off with me, truly. So, I mean, having a female director, I think, always opens up the pathway that you can communicate with her much more openly. She almost, because it is my first big BBC show, or my big first project, I hadn't said that, but she drew me out of my comfort zone. She drew me out of that shell that I was cocooned in, and she believed in me. She saw potential in me, and she knew right away that she could get what she wanted out of me, and she did that. So her vision is so clear with what she wants, and having somebody direct you in a way that knows what she wants is, I think, for an actor, very encouraging, because you're not going out in the dark, having no idea, and being clueless. So it helps you in that way. And for a newcomer like me, that was very, very helpful because I knew what I was getting myself into. I could trust her. So I feel like as an artist, you have to trust your director, and I could blindly with her.
Right. Sheila, can you talk to us a little bit about working with Hallie and particularly, this is very much a female story as well, and the notion of getting that direction from a female director.
It kind of the female thing for a film like Bruise works on so many levels, because firstly the subject matter is talking about female MMA, right, women's MMA, and it's often the case in sports that the women's equivalent sort of doesn't necessarily get the same amount of attention as the male's equivalent. We see that in tennis, we see that across sports, football, just to name a few. So to be able to have a woman directing that story was particularly significant, because all the things that come with that, in the gender disparity that permeates so many industries throughout the world, to have somebody who really understands that and who has experienced that themselves, I think was really brought something to the piece. And actually that was, Hallie was so dedicated, and she's talked about her love for MMA as well. And obviously she's in the piece as well. She's playing the lead character, Jackie Justice. So then to act opposite her, as well as being directed by her, like for me as a a Black female actress, was just out of this world. She is she's the only Black woman to win an Oscar for Best Actress so far. And she is, I know, for myself and many other Black women, and actually just Black actors in general, she really is one of our heroes. So to be able to work with her so intimately in that way was an extraordinary experience. And also going beyond her as a woman and beyond her as, Halle Berry, the actress that we know, she's just an extraordinary person as well. And she's got a great vision and is so talented and so passionate and works so hard. So for me, inspiring, and something that I could take away from the job and take into my career, to see a role model essentially working in the way that she's working and having the level of sensitivity and care and providing the kind of safety that someone like myself needed on a job like this, I just thought was so inspirational. So it was, couldn't have asked for a better director.
Thank you. That's great. And Madeleine, it's interesting because your film deals with difficult subject matter that that is often, attempted and tackled by male directors. And so, this is very much a female story and a female experience. And wondering if you can talk about, the desire to sort of, take the power and tell this story, from a female lens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's immediately what I thought about when you asked the question. I've always been drawn to revenge films, and films that explore sexual assault have been really very interesting to me. It comes from a deeply personal place for me. But they're usually directed by men, and they're usually explored by men. And because of that, they usually focus on the female body a lot. And kind of the way that the female body is filmed is a very specific way. And I really didn't see it that way. I wanted to show how the male body plays a part into trauma and sexual assault, and how do women view the male body as threatening, as imposing, as just kind of as sexual as well. I think the male body is so often ignored in films like this, and I think that is something that Violation definitely does, is put the focus back on that. There's a lot of male nudity in the film, and there's no female nudity. So that's definitely something that was a conflict story.
Right. And Rainbow, Beans deals so much with a protest and violence that can happen at protests. And this film set 20 years ago. but you know, oftentimes people might think of maleness in terms of protest and violence and authority. This is very much the female experience, and sort of, you know, being in the middle of something like cultural unrest and protest. And when you can talk about the difference of that, and you know, being a part of the story that Tracy created here.
Oh yeah, well, you know, I mean, I love the question in general about the differences between being directed by a female maybe versus a male, and you know, I feel like, and it's not good or bad, one's not right and one's not wrong, but you know, masculine and feminine energy they're very different, right? And I do think the feminine has an ability to have a bigger peripheral awareness. I think, you know, they're better multitaskers. They've got a more intuitive access to, I think, emotions and understanding them and connections to different things. So I think working on this project with Tracy, you know, when we would talk about something, we would be able to talk about technically what does the shot look like. She can say what she needs, what her vision is, and sort of break down the logistics. And at the same time, she can also say, but now, how are you feeling in this? Or you know, where do we need to go emotionally with this? Or this is how I feel about it. So we could have the technical conversations, we could have the feeling place conversations, and we could kind of hold all of it at once, right? She was a very good balancer at that. I don't know if the experience would have been the same in masculine hands, but also sort of telling this story, it made me aware too, culturally, there are a lot of differences in the way we relate, men and women relate in different cultures, right? And for a lot of Indigenous peoples, you know, the feminine actually have a much larger role in the society and in the community. And they, you know, it's not the same as maybe it necessarily is in other cultures or in the United States. So it wasn't much of a stretch, actually, in some ways, to have the feminine kind of lifted in this film.
That's great insight and knowledge for us to understand that. Thank you. So I'm going to start ask a couple of questions about your process as an actor. If maybe you could talk to us first, because there probably are a lot of young aspiring actors watching this. Can you talk to us a little bit about maybe the best piece of advice sort of coming up to this point where, you know, you've reached, you know, success, and what's the best piece of advice as you were younger, you know, as an actor? We'll start with, let's start with Sheila.
Why? No, you know, I'm so bad at those kind of things where it's like, what's the best? My memory just removes everything that I've ever known. But what I can say is I can talk more broadly about the ideologies, I guess, that people over the course of my career so far have instilled in me that have really helped. I think the biggest thing is relaxation for me, just finding a way to relax into whatever it is that you're doing. That requires a great deal of trust, trust in yourself and everyone else around you, the team that is you're working with and the people who are guiding you. But yeah, I think relaxing, I think trusting your instincts, it all sounds like quite obvious, boring stuff, but that for me really has been the thing that when I find like I'm struggling, I always go back to base. I just say to myself, you know, let's chill out, remove the noise a little bit and just get to the core of what it is you're looking for. And I think once you're able to access that for yourself, then you don't have to worry too much about the obviously there are nuts and bolts, you know, you do have to stand in the right place and you do have to find your light and you do have to make sure you can be heard and blah, blah, blah. But if a level of relaxation is kind of underpinning all of it, then everything else will kind of fall into place around it. I think particularly one of the things that I've had to really adapt to is and I'm still quite new to screen. I did theatre for 5 years and then started to transition more into screen work. And I'm still, you know, keen to do theatre, but it's still quite new for me. So it's a very different process. You know, you're suddenly doing one scene over and over again, and then you'll never return to that scene again. Or you're not actually, your eye line is in a strange place. You're not actually talking to the thing you think you're talking to, and there's a boom here and a camera there. You know, it's just all, you forget that these things are all just cut out in order to make up the world, and that's why screen is so extraordinary. But it's a very different process. It doesn't allow you to have necessarily the full chronological arc that you would for a theatre show. So in that instance, relaxation is very important, because if you're worrying about all of these things, as well as worrying about your performance and tensing up and getting stressed, it's all going to fall apart. So I'd say that for me is the biggest thing that I've learned about screen and process.
That's great. Thank you, Sheila. Rainbow, do you have any thoughts or memories on the best advice you received as a young actor?
Yeah, I do. And the first thing that popped into my head actually is probably really terrible to say, but hysterically funny. And maybe it's not the core of it, but I'm going to tell you anyway, but I'm going to tell you second. What I tend to go back to and stick to is just the remembrance that there's not just one path. Like, my journey as an actor, as an artist, is not going to look like anyone else's necessarily. So when I'm down or when I'm up, I try and just remind myself, like, you know, my journey is my own. Take what makes sense to me, leave what doesn't. You know, there's no need to compare yourself and where you're at to anyone else, because there is no comparison. It's your own. And you can also make it your own journey, right? If something doesn't feel right, don't go that way. Even if other people are telling you that's the way to go, if it's not right to you, don't go that way. You can still get to the end. You can still get to where you want to go, walking your own path. But the thing that popped into my head was, a wonderful friend and a teacher and a coach of mine. She once said, you know, if you really love this, if you really love something, you know, make sure you're in it for the long haul, and just keep going, because eventually everyone else will either quit or die. And I know she was kind of joking, but that has always stuck with me. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to steal that, I think. Tanya, can you share with us a piece of advice that you received when you were younger that stuck with you?
Sure. Like Sheila and Rainbow said, you have to trust your team, and you have to also believe in yourself at the same time. It's a process, so just give into it. And everybody has to run their own race, and everybody has a different journey. You won't necessarily be at the same path. You won't necessarily be taking the same route, but you will get there eventually. Just know what you're doing it for, and do it for the right reasons. So I feel like, remember why you started, why you wanted to ever do it in the first place, and believe in your truth. You have a story to tell. You're here you're here with a purpose and for a purpose. So just believe in yourself. I feel like that is one thing that stuck with me. And you have to trust the process. You have to give into it, and you just have to completely submit to it. And good things will happen. You just have to be patient.
Right. Kind of like what Sheila was saying about canceling out the noise. Sometimes the noise is in your own head.
Exactly.
Madeleine, any piece of advice that you'd like to share with some aspiring young actors out there?
Yeah. So there was a teacher that I had in when I went to drama school, and it was just like a throwaway comment in a class, but he said, "Forget that you have a face." And like at the time, I didn't really think about it. It was just funny. I thought it was funny, and I've thought about it again and again. And then on Violation, it suddenly made sense. And it kind of ties into what Sheila was saying about like the calm and the quiet and kind of being able to, I don't know, meditate in a certain way, but forgetting that I had a face and that I was an actor in a scene, or that I was a person, and just being able to feel what was coming from the other people suddenly clicked. And I think sometimes you get advice and it doesn't click in for a while until you like there's a project you do or a thing that happens, or suddenly something settles into your body. And I got that, I mean, not just that piece of advice of forget that you have a face, but you hear again and again that things won't make sense straight away, or you have to let something settle in. You have to, you learn these techniques and these processes, and it takes time. It takes time for you to understand them and for them to work and for them to make sense and to actually start to become part of your process and your work. So I think not being too obsessed with results and just like letting yourself find your own process and your own way and your own the things that work for you. But also something that, a piece of advice that I would have for young aspiring actors, directors, producers, writers, is don't define yourself. Because I found I knew I wanted to be an actor and a director. And since I left high school, people have been saying, but do you want to be a director or do you want to be an actor? Like, are you more of an actor, but you also direct stuff? Or do you just act in stuff because you direct it and it's easy for you to act in it? And I always felt like an imposter, whether I was an imposter director or an imposter actor. I always felt like a bit of an imposter. And I think it's important to remember that you can do lots of things. You don't have to say, I'm this one thing. You can be whatever things you want to be, and that's fine. Just don't let people push you around and say, what are you?
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great advice. Thank you. So, I mean, in all professions, we all face challenges with whether it be colleagues or, you know, our boss. And in the film world, the director is most cases the boss. Can you talk about any challenges that you've had with a particular director that you know, and the advice to overcome those challenges, because that can be a very touchy situation, you know, where, you know, it could be removed from a project or something, you know, something like that. So can you talk some advice on when there's some conflict between you as an actor and with the director? And maybe Rainbow, we can start with you.
Sure. You know, I guess I'm feeling pretty lucky because I'm thinking, you know, through my memories right now, and I really haven't had that experience to speak to. I think I would say maybe the most challenging or the worst experience that I've had is just a director maybe not having the time. I don't want to say indifferent towards me, but just maybe not having the time or the ability for whatever reason to help me craft my performance. So I'm kind of just left to my own devices, which can be a challenge because you don't know if you're on track. You don't have that outside eye. But that's probably the worst experience that I've had as far as a relationship with a director. And in that case, what I had to do was just show up with my pockets full, you know, every day, put out, you know, what I had to put out, and, you know, work off my fellow actors and hope for the best, you know, and go home and sort of self-soothe that, you know, I'm not being helped, not because I'm not worthy, but just there's other stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I mean, I yay, knock on wood, I haven't had a really terrible experience.
Does either Sheila, Tanya, or Madeleine any advice to, you know, sort of overcome adversity with the director? Any experiences there that you want to share? Sheila?
I think it's quite it's tricky because there's a difference between you know, each director comes with their own process as well, right? And directors have a very tricky job in the sense that they're having to unite a group of people who have never worked together and, you know, pull everyone in the same direction. So sometimes there may be a negotiation process between your processes, other people's processes, and the director's process. So I think it's important to try, if it seems like it's a safe environment to do so, to communicate what it is that you need. and just make it clear that, you know, it's not that you're doing a bad job, but it's that thing that you're doing for that guy, it doesn't work for me. And I appreciate that you're doing it for, you know, that person over there, but I would just need a little bit of this as a kind of supplementary thing. And then sometimes there are more difficult situations. Again, I haven't really worked with any directors who have caused me huge problems, but we all know that it's there in the industry, and you know, this goes for other people in the team as well, not just directors. But I think it's important to, as Rainbow was saying, you know, self-soothe and find an outlet if it really is a struggle, but also to try and worry about what you can control, and try and, from early on, discern reasoning as to why you feel like you just can't pull in the same direction as this director, and then say, okay, this is what I can take care of by myself. I can turn up with my pockets full. I can make choices. I can, you know, have discussions with other cast members. I can, you know, trying to find a way around it so that at least when it comes to what you've got to do, you know, give 100% of yourself. And then, of course, there are areas of the job of this industry that you can't control. You know, no project is ever just led by one person. So sometimes you can shoot something and then it goes into the editing suite and you don't know what they're going to pick, you know. So I think it's about, is what the empowering thing is, to actually just relinquish control in the areas where you will never have control, and then just focus on the areas where you can have control. And I think that's a mentality to take through into other aspects of the industry as well. You know, when you're auditioning, and, you know, when you first get a new job, when you're working with new actors that you don't know, all those things. Yeah.
So we are taking, we have a question here from an audience member, and if you're out there watching, please text us your questions here in the chat box. But so this is from Marcel. They say, I love the discussion on how both males and females differ in both their strengths and weaknesses as directors. How would you suggest a male director better incorporate the female experience in a project? Madeleine or Tanya, either of you have any thoughts on that first?
Yeah, I would say ask questions. Just be ask us questions, find out as much as you can, and just talk to the women who you have on your project. Have women on your project, firstly, have women on the crew, and ask their opinions. Talk to them, because you'll find out a new perspective, and yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah. Tanya, any thoughts to share on that question from Marcel?
Exactly like Madeleine said, ask questions. I feel like half the job is done when you start communicating, and be open to suggestions, be open to listening, and go into things with an open mind. I feel like your job is done. That is it. It's not that difficult.
Right.
Jump back in. There was an experience actually on the set of Violation where my DP Adam was framing up a shot, and I was in it, so I wasn't looking at the monitor, and Dusty was looking at the monitor, and Adam was framing it, and the two of them came to me and they were like, look, we want to just show you this because we want to check that the shot doesn't seem gratuitous, because they just wondered if the angle of it was kind of sexualizing my character. And I so appreciated that, and I actually didn't think it was, but I so appreciated the fact that they thought about that, and then they came and spoke to me about it and asked my opinion.
That's great. I want to ask about, you know, who each of you sort of, you know, whose work are you admiring right now? Is there a director out there that you would love to work with that you haven't with? Maybe Sheila or Rainbow, we could ask from you first. Anyone that you're, you know, sort of dying to work with on a project?
Rainbow, go first. Again, that thing where everything disappears from my head. Just
okay, Rainbow.
Sorry,
Rainbow, you go first.
But I just need like 5 minutes.
Sure.
Oh, drats. Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Yeah, gosh, you know, I mean, I'm very new to screen as well, right? So pretty much you could name anyone and I'll be like, yeah, let's do it. yeah, let's collaborate. Let's work on something. I mean, I just watched, I'm watching some of the films on TIFF, right? And I just watched an amazing documentary, Michelle Latimer. And so, of course, she's on the top of my head, like, oh God, that would be amazing. Greta Gerwig, I think she would be amazing to work with as a director. The Coen brothers, pop into my brain pan. Scorsese, Woody Allen. I mean, the big, the names that everybody kind of knows. And then there's people in my own sphere. There are friends that I've known for years that have been kind of at this, making their own work, and they would be on my list. People that you'd never heard of. Virginia Hastings, a good friend of mine. Like, there are a lot of directors that I would work with. I gave you like 5.
That's great. Anybody else want to share any filmmakers that are inspiring you and you'd love to work with? Yes, Sheila, go ahead.
Well, 2, 3, the Safdie brothers. I saw Uncut Gems before, and then recently watched Good Time, and just think they're so interesting and just incredible, and everything looks beautiful and weird and great.
Yeah.
Really boring words. And then Ava DuVernay. I'd love to work with Ava DuVernay. I think everything she does is so thoughtful, and I think it's really nice when you can feel the passion that a director has for a project in the final product. When you can see that, even if you don't know anything about it, you don't know anything about their process, you haven't spoken to them or spoken to anyone who worked on it, but you can just tell that when they were making this thing, they gave it 100% of their time and energy. And I really feel that with all the stuff that she makes. So those 3 people.
Great. Tanya or Madeleine, anyone you want to shout out, get their attention right now?
Go ahead.
And Greta, if you're listening, hi. I would really love to work with you, but I mean, more than just any name, I think I would love to work on great content, and that's what I'm looking for. Because I mean, coming from a very new perspective and new point of view, I feel like I wasn't a name that was heard of. And if my director hadn't seen what she saw in me and she just went for a name, maybe I wouldn't have been here and maybe somebody else would have. So instead of going for a name, I want great content. That's what I'm looking for.
For me, I'd love to work with Andrea Arnold. She inspired me as a director. I love the way she works with actors. I just think she's an incredible filmmaker. And Dee Reese, who did a film called Prior and Mudbound. Again, just the way that she works with actors. I think both of them I'd love to work with. And also there's a director in Toronto, Grace Klawicki, who's doing amazing things and amazing physical performances. She's an actor and director as well. And I'd love to work with her one day.
That's great. All right, those directors, if you're watching, call their agents. Actually, Madeleine, so we have a question for you from one of our audience members, Caitlin. For directing and acting, did you meticulously plan your shot list and knowing exactly what you were executing each day in order to focus on your character, or was a lot of it trust within your key crew and fellow creator?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It was a mixture of both. So the way that Dusty, my creative partner, and I work together is we do very meticulously plan. So we planned everything down to the smallest detail, but then you have to kind of throw it away when you get on set. You have to be completely open to changing all of the stuff that you planned. And I think that does come with, we've worked together for a long time, and there's a real trust between me and him, and also between the rest of the crew as well, that we're all working together. We've had lots of meetings. We know the film we're making. So when I do have to go into character and not think about any of the directing stuff at all, I know what's happening. And it also was a little bit of double duty where I'd have to go watch dailies, and I'd have to do extra work afterwards to make sure that there wasn't anything that I thought that we missed. But yeah, it was kind of a combo of both.
That's great. That's great. So unfortunately, we are out of time to get through another series of questions, but Sheila, Rainbow, Tanya, Madeleine, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us virtually, and thank you so much for the performances and the artistry. It's a weird year, but we're thankful and blessed that these projects could come to our audiences, and these stories could penetrate us and be a part of our world. So I thank you for joining us, and I hope everyone watching will enjoy some of these films and enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.